Okay, so welcome to week 4 of class, English 333, Advanced Comp for Future Teachers. I'm assuming that you've looked at the assignment sheet for this week, the weekly assignments. There are 3 tasks on there. 2 of them are required. 1 is optional, but highly recommended. So I thought I'd just talk you through those tasks real quickly and then invite you to contact me and stuff about questions. So the first task is simply a continuation of work you've been doing over the last 2 weeks, which is working with James G's book. You're going to be reading the next 2 chapters of that book. That would be 5 and 6, I guess, for this week. Sorry, I can't remember the ideas and things. I never remember the numbers, but so you're going to be reading those chapters and then responding by blogging about them again. As we're also I'll sort of be mixing the tasks together here a little bit. You're working on the multimodal documents as well here this week, and so I really want you to be thinking about James G's work in this context of the multimodal document and the thing that you're going to be creating this document about, the topic of learning that you're doing that's outside of school. With that in mind, as you are sort of evaluating the ideas that show up in these chapters in G's books, be thinking about, what does that look like in my situation or my case? So like the notion from the first week of the semiotic domain. What does that mean if what I'm talking about is mountain unicycling or whatever your topic happens to be? That's the way I want you to be thinking about that. This week some things like this notion of the amplification of input and how that ends up working out, that for a little input you get a lot of output, or the notion of identity seems a really important one. As you learn how to do this thing, how do you start taking on the identity of someone who does whatever it is that you're learning how to do? If you're learning to be a Spanish speaker, what's that mean? What kind of identity do you take on? How does that impact the way that you think of yourself, or sort of structure meaning around your life? So take those ideas, not just the ones that I just mentioned here. Those are just exemplars of the kinds of things that G is getting at. But take those ideas and see what you can do with them. How do they fit? How do they fit into the real context that you're working with? So think about that as you're blogging, and as you're reading the book as well. Just sort of keep that in mind as sort of this is the just a way of sort of measuring. Like G says this thing is existing on this level. For you, does it exist at all in the way that you're learning, or is it up above or down below, or sort of where does it fit in with the way that you think about your own processes of learning? Okay. The second task for this week is to create a rough cut of your multimodal document. That probably sounds daunting, but I'm asking you to just sort of play a little bit with the technologies and things. So if you get messed up, if you get frustrated, if you get whatever, just sort of know that that's part of the process of doing this, is learning how to do it. Okay. There's a bunch of different sort of steps that I'm asking you to take, and this is in the description of the multimodal document itself. It's also on this week's assignment thing. There are a number of I guess sort of process-oriented elements that you might think about. If you haven't already, start gathering some multimodal materials for your thing. That means having some pictures taken while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. If you don't already have some of those, you may have a whole sort of collection of that kind of stuff already. Get some video, get some sounds, get some music kind of things. Start to think about how you're going to represent what you're learning to the audience that you choose. Okay? So that's sort of the first kind of a thing. And as you're doing that, start thinking about what words are going to go with this. How are you going to talk through this? What's the narration going to look like for this? And so some people have had really good luck starting with the words, writing about what you're learning, creating a script. And some people, like within the script, is they're writing a script, they'll actually like put a little, those little square brackets in the text itself that says, picture of X, whatever the thing happens to be, so that as you're writing, you are visualizing as well. And sometimes what happens is that picture of X might be something that you don't have a picture of, and so you need to create that picture or find that picture. It helps you sort of to do the planning maybe by scripting first. Now, other people have had the exact opposite success, and so what they do is they gather like the materials, the images and things like that. They start to put them into sort of a timeline, like first this picture, then this picture, then this picture, and after they have that sort of set out, then the words start to come. And so, there's not a right or a wrong. It's the, what is it that works? It's just like any other sort of writing. It's a process that goes from something that's, rolling around up here in your head to a thing that's spilled out on the page or on the screen or in whatever shape the document ends up taking. Okay. So that's the second thing, is to create this sort of rough draft, rough cut of your multimodal document. Again, use the resources page for the multimodal document. There's a link from there that gives you some tutorials on things, like on how to use Movie Maker, which is a pretty simple program, or Photo Story, which is also pretty straightforward, or iMovie, or any of those that you might want to be putting together. Feel free as well to use VoiceThread. VoiceThread is that thing that we were played with last week, and where you can put up a picture, put up a video, put up whatever, and then add your comments. You can add video comments or spoken comments or written comments to create a multimodal thing. So whatever form, it's up to you. It's the way to represent the thing you're learning about and how you are working as a learner, and how those things interact with what James G says about the kinds of things that happen when learning is really going on big time, like those happening with that. Within the context of that thing that Csikszentmihalyi calls flow, that flow experience thing that G discusses. So that's what I'm asking you to do. As you're doing the multimodal document thing, create this rough cut of it so you have a sense of what it's looking like. And I do want you to write a blog entry as well about how things are going with that. What problems are you experiencing? What kinds of things could help you get through it? What sorts of things have you realized? Any things like that that give a sense of where you are with this process. So I'm looking forward to reading those and seeing what you have to say. That brings me to the final thing that is on the list, and this is an optional one. You don't have to do it. I would suggest you do it just because it's probably going to be helpful to you. And that is to go and look at other people's blogs. So read what they've been saying, what your classmates have been saying about James G, because maybe their ideas about him are a little different than yours. Maybe they see something that you didn't see, and vice versa. So it's more. It's more of a way of it's akin to having a class discussion where you're getting to hear other people's points of view. Where somebody says something, you go like, oh man, I didn't even think of that. So that's the opportunity. So I would suggest that it would be good to look through everybody's blogs and see what they have to say. Also read about when this last blog that I just mentioned about the multimodal document, when people are posting that, you may find out that you have some expertise to share. So somebody might say, oh, I'm trying to do this thing with Movie Maker and it just doesn't work. Then maybe you know how to do that, and you can let them know, either by emailing them, because we have that, the class contact sheet, and you can always use that to email, or by doing something else, like putting a comment on their blog. Okay, so that's the things for this week. Be sure and contact me if you have questions about stuff, and I will look forward to hearing your questions and getting back to you. And I'm really excited to see how these projects shape up.